This is Front Page with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
That's right, Front Page of this Saturday. Unfortunately, I can't say it's a beautiful Saturday, given the security situation in the country. From Kebbi State to Kwara State and now Niger State. It's incredible what is happening. All of these things we're going to talk about on the front page today. Somebody said the nation is in chaos, and it is what it is. Sad stuff. But hope you're good regardless. You have to find time to take care of yourself, given where we have found ourselves. It's like all man for himself. So if you know all of those things that predispose you to danger, you have to limit them. And so if you go out too often at odd times, or places that are vulnerable to crimes and criminalities, you have to limit how often you go there. You have to be careful with the kind of information you share, right? Because it's like nobody's coming to save you. Alright, so welcome to Front Page today. My name is Njideka Maduka, and of course you already know how we do it here. The Front Page is where we look at the biggest headlines on our national dailies and try as much as possible to make sense of them. So you're very much welcome. The last time we were supposed to be here was sometime in October 1 precisely. I said work will always get in the way, but I kind of found time during that period. But guess what? I did some recordings and part of it got wiped out. It was unbelievable. I kept like, okay, what's going on? And I just couldn't retrieve it. And I felt disappointed and just left the whole thing. And this is not the first time something like that is happening. But regardless of that challenge, and of course the time constraint as well, we always find time, for the front page, which is the paper review, making sense of the news, which is my podcast, and in the news, which is the humor side of news. Anytime I have time, I'll always, try to create something from them. So if you see certain posts more often than others, it's because I'm trying to manage the little time I have. I just squeeze it in, and that's why you see them more often than the main ones. But of course, like I said, I will always find time because they are my brainchild, right? So welcome once again. What do we have before us? We have the Punch, we have This Day, and of course the Sun newspapers.
This is Front Page with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
On the front page of the Punch, the security issue, obviously. FG State short schools as terrorists abduct 215 Niger pupils. FG State short schools as terrorists abduct 215 Niger pupils. The lead says the federal government and some northern states have ordered a shutdown of academic activities in some schools over rising insecurity and abduction of pupils. While the federal government closed 41 unity schools, governors of Kwara, Plateau, Niger, Benue, and Katsina also shut down schools in their states. Attention escalated on Friday after bandits attacked St. Mary's School, a Catholic institution in the Papari community of Agwara, local government area, Niger State, abducting 215 students and 12 teachers. Well, the Punch is reporting that 215 students were kidnapped in the Niger school incidents and 12 teachers. As of this morning, I saw another report where they said the figure has risen to 300 and something, which is really huge. Like, how did it happen that such a huge number of persons were taken out of school and there was no security in place to stop them? Because if you're going to take this huge number, it's going to take you time, right? even driving to that place, you would have to go on maybe vehicles that are more than one, right? If you're going to take such a huge number. So the question will be, when these people were coming, by the time they were operating and by the time they left, there was no security reimbursement to check all of this movement. That's number one. Number two is that what we're witnessing is like a mixture of so many things. A mixture of unseriousness, incompetence, negligence, and mischief. Mischief in the sense that when some of those reports come, you hear things like, oh, we gave intelligence, but apparently it was not worked on. And now you have the Niger State government saying that they told the military intelligence was given, it was not acted upon. In fact, the military withdrew a few minutes before the attack. Another teacher made that claim, and these are the kind of things we hear every time there is a kidnap of this nature. And that's why I say mischief. Who is behind all of this negligence when it comes to not acting on intelligence? And the fact that relevant authorities have not asked questions and brought somebody to book anytime you have these claims shows that we are unserious. So it's a bunch of things going on here, right? In addition to the fact that we have not been able to work on the pattern that has been established, because sometimes reports always show that some of these kidnappings happen in the wee hours, pre-dawn mostly, before the early mornings. You see them attacking 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And these are the times we're supposed to, fortify the schools. But we have not acted on past patterns. That is also part of intelligence. Ability to connect the dots, establish patterns and work on those patterns. You don't need technology to help you establish and work on those patterns. These are basic security issues. Now, another evidence of our seriousness is the fact that past efforts to enhance security in our schools have not been acted upon. You talk about the Safe School Initiative, which was launched in 2014, right there in Abuja, with international partners. But the question is, how far has Safe School Initiative gone to enhance the safety of our schools? If you read reports, you will hear where they will say such amount of money had been disbursed. But how safe are our schools now? Because the Safe School Initiative came on board after the Chibok girls' school kidnap, which was actually a good idea, And part of the things it was supposed to do was to ensure that there were perimeter fencings around the schools. Perimeter fencings. That's the most basic thing. But what Punch is reporting this morning is, despite all of this initiative, when you go to some northern schools, you still have over 42,000 schools in the north without perimeter fencing. Bauchi has the highest number of unfenced secondary schools, just secondary schools unfenced, 574. Then you have Benue, 447, Kanu, 500, Adamawa, 379, and Jigawa, 269. Just secondary schools unfenced. We have not talked about primary school. Now, these are the things the Safe School Initiative was supposed to take care of. In addition to other things like, maybe lighting of schools, put lights everywhere. Just so that when they come, maybe around that time they usually come, you can actually know where to start to engage these bandits and terrorists. But can we gauge the level of lightings in the school? Is there even electricity in those schools? How many security personnel are deployed to schools? How well are they equipped? And we expect the schools to be safe. Of course, it's not going to be safe. And you have people giving different reasons why the schools are being subjected to kidnapping. Look at the AGF the other time. That's George Akume saying it's because of the statement by Trump alleging Christian genocide. In his own estimation, the security situation has escalated because with the statement by Trump some of these terrorists have actually tried to use it to gain visibility. They have increased their attack just so that they can increase visibility. But what that statement actually fails to recognize is the fact that you have always had attacks, not just in school, but across the country. If you're talking about schools now, when you look at Amnesty report, last year was like the 10th anniversary of the Chibok girls kidnap. And during that period, Amnesty International released a report saying that since that Chibok girls kidnap in 2014, at least 17 cases of mass abductions have been witnessed, and 1,700 children have been seized from their schools by government. There have been 17 cases of mass abductions, in which at least 1,700 children were seized from their schools. So what does that mean? The attacks are not new. Right from 2014 up to 2024, last year. So all of these things appear to be excuses for me. And then you have people blaming it on politics as well, that some people, because of the politics of 2027, are trying to make government look bad. Well, that's why you have government. Government should use their intelligence to fish out these people. Is that easy? Is that easy? I don't know why they're not able to have a grip on these things. And then you have people, especially in the case of what is going on in Kwara State, alluding to the fact that some people are going on with the expansionist agenda, trying to grab people's land, displace people from their land. In fact, this particular one that happened in Kwara also puts lie to AGF's claim that Trump's rhetoric escalated things, because Kwara in recent times have been subjected to attacks by those bandits or headers. Mahmuda, a new terrorist group, was said to have been operating for some months now. What did the government do? The communities that have been crying, and then you now have the attack that happened in the church, Christ Apostolic Church. And now people are trying to attribute it to so many things. At the end of the day, it's almost difficult to really understand the security situation in the country. Are we dealing with terrorism like extreme Islamist terrorism? Are we dealing with banditry? Are we dealing with, expansionist movement? Are we dealing with pure criminality where the face of these various levels of insecurity? Whichever one we're dealing with, I think the government will have to show it has an upper hand. And I think the country is just too big to leave a security issue to just the federal government, right? Where you have personal strength of just over 300 and something thousand of policemen protecting the country, and the military almost in the same number. This big country. In fact, that number should be what a state should be having as is personal strength, security personal strength. And so why don't we devolve security architecture? Why don't we allow states to set up their security measures, recruit personnel, equip them appropriately, deploy them in the most vulnerable places? Why is it difficult to do? I've always said, and even in my radio programs, it was easy for us to change the national anthem overnight, but we can't seem to speed up with the change in the security architecture of the country. We can restructure security so much so that we give power to people who are closest to those affected so that they can deal with insecurity around the surroundings. Why is it difficult? It now goes back to part of what I said on seriousness. And so if we want to get things done, we can do it. But the question is, why are we not doing it? And people are dying. As we speak now, these children are in the forest. Do you know how uncomfortable it is to be in the forest? Do you know how uncomfortable it is not to even go a day without a shower? Or go some hours without a shower? Not to talk about people in the forest for days, weeks, months. And it's not just these students. There are people who have been kidnapped across the country. They were not kidnapped from schools. They were not kidnapped. They were just on the road. They are in our forest. But we seem to be paying attention because there has been mass kidnap. But people have been committing atrocities against Nigerians, and the government does not seem to understand how to take care of it. It's inexcusable. There is no way you can excuse it. And that actually leads us to the next paper this morning, which is on this day. On this day newspaper, it says, terrorists on rampage. FG Katsina Plateau shot schools. Ribadu meets Hexeth. Terrorists on rampage. FG Katsina Plateau shot schools. Ribadu meets Hexeth. You have some riders here. 227 students, teachers kidnapped from St. Mary's Catholic School. Niger State government says management ignored security advisory. Northern governors condemn incident, demand swift coordinated action to rescue victims. Basically, similar report with the Punch. The additional information is that the Niger State government is blaming the management of the school for ignoring advisory. They have to take care of that. They have to prod the school to really know or establish the fact behind them opening school despite the advisory. But just in continuation of what I was saying on the Punch is the fact that the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, met with some U.S. officials in the person of the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. I mean, they have been going around meeting different government officials of the U.S., which for me is really funny, you know. You wouldn't be doing all of these meetings if you have a grasp. And I like the fact that anytime they go for these meetings, the U.S. officials will tell them to do something about it. Show commitment. The last time they met with the lawmaker in the U.S. lower chamber and the person of Raleigh Moore, he told them they have to do something about the insecurity. They have to do something about the alleged Christian genocide. And now, the U.S. Secretary of War, to say, according to what this day is saying, emphasize the need for Nigeria to demonstrate commitment and take both urgent and enduring action to stop violence against Christians. I mean, take care of the situation. How difficult is it? We're leaving that particular story because it can be quite exhausting. I was on social media the other time and somebody was saying if he were to be in charge of the country, what he would do to these marauders, oh goodness, and all of the people behind the security situation is going to build like a separate entity to incarcerate them. I mean, it's not difficult to deal with, unless of course there is something we don't know. But on the Sun newspaper, Nnamdi Kanu's imprisonment, IPOB legal team consider options. Nnamdi Kanu's imprisonment, IPOB legal team consider options. I mean, this was one of the biggest stories this week. It's been crazy, but let's look at the lead. Okay, let's look at the rider first. The family rejects alleged relocation to Sokoto. Ohaneze, MBF orders seek political solution. Bianco Ojukwu urges calm, calls for dialogue with federal government. Mascot Uzokalo appeals to Tinubu to intervene. While reactions have been trolling the life sentence passed on the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, the Federal High Court in Abuja, presided over by Justice James Omotosho on Thursday. We have the Sun saying various interest groups, political figures, and public affairs commentators from across the country examine the development from different perspectives, with some seeking political solutions and presidential intervention, even as lawyers review legal options available to Kanu. The question will be for those who are seeking some sort of political solution, what's the president going to do about it? Because obviously, if the presidency had allowed this to go through the legal route, would the presidency stay on it until Supreme Court makes a pronouncement before a political solution can be brought forward? Or is it going to do it now that the Federal High Court has given judgment? What's it going to be actually? Somebody said perhaps the federal government is trying to make an example of people like Kanu to show that it can't threaten a country and go scot-free. But you have other people also saying, well, there are other people who have acted similar to him and they have been given pardon of some sort. But of course, when you measure the alleged violence against the different figures that have preached secession or have tried to create some sort of non-state actor groups is almost incomparable, because if people try to measure what has been attributed to Kanu with what has been attributed to Igboho, when you look at Igboho, his things where he was spewing rhetorics of secession, Yoruba nation and all that, and trying to push away the Fulani headers away from Yoruba State. But there is no evidence of violence against him. The only violence recorded was just the time DSS invaded his home in Ibadan. And of course, you compare that to seeming challenge of the Nigerian authority carried out by the Fulani cattle horror president, that's Abdullahi Bodejo. His plan to set up a security outfit to, protect his people, man the forest, which was frowned upon by the Nigerian government. There's no evidence that anybody was killed. I think Kanu's issue was a bit more subjected to scrutiny because of the supposed violence that came with it. His radio broadcast was said to have pushed people to attack policemen, attack public facilities. And I also think that the NSAS protests actually worked against him. Because, yes, while Kanu had been advocating for arms, at the World Igbo Congress, sometime in 2015, as far back as 2015, was said to have, at that conference, demanded or called for arms just so they can achieve the Biafra nation. But he never acted upon it, and that's why I said the NSAS worked against him. Because after that NSAS, that was when the ESN was created. NSAS took place around October. ESN was created around December 2020. Right, and so you look at the timeline from 2015, there was no violence in the southeast and attacks on police stations until 2020 during the NSAS. Kanu was said to have, during that one of the broadcasts during the NSAS, saying, attack police stations, kill policemen and all that. But of course, you know that it's almost difficult to pin the attacks around that NSAS period to him, because the attack, I think, started from Lagos, based on the fact that people perceive government to be working against the movement. And so out of frustration, they began to attack police stations and attack policemen. And Kanu used the opportunity, I presume, from what he heard that was happening in Lagos or across the country, in view of the attacks on policemen, to say, attack them. ESN was not formed at the time. All right. So the attacks on police stations and police officers was a general thing, and I think it's debatable to ascribe it to Kanu. And so when Justice Omotosho said that the attack in Lagos on policemen was because of his rhetoric, it becomes a bit debatable, because Kanu's broadcast was in faraway east. How could people in Lagos have heard his directive for such attack? But the thing is, I think after the October 2023 and the days after that, after ESN was formed in December, there was a copycat attack, what I would call copycat attack. And so this group has now been formed, and now members presumably began to copy what happened during the NSAS attack and began to attack public facilities, including prisons, right? And so can kind of extricate himself from the culpability of people who attacked public facilities after ESN was created. Because when other attacks on police stations and police facilities and even public institutions stopped in different parts of the country, it continued in the southeast. Why? And could such attacks in the southeast have continued without an organized group carrying it out? Who was responsible for such organized groups? Right? Well, you have another report I came across some time ago trying to ascribe the attacks on police facilities and security personnel on the defensive measure by ESN after it was created. The report said that, security operatives began to hound members of the ESN. Out of anger, they began to attack public facilities. I mean, that's on one angle. But I just talked about what I perceive based on what I observed during that period. I may be wrong, I may be right. Just speaking from perception. But continuing with the alleged contradiction in what Justice Omotosho wrote, some groups said that Justice Omotosho is saying that Kanu called for bombing of US and UK missions in Nigeria. That this thing was not in any of the 7-count charge. And it seemed Justice Omotosho smuggled this particular allegation. Because when you look at that charge, 7 of them, there is nowhere they said Kanu planned to bomb UK and US missions in Nigeria. And so the thing is, when you have these things that observers are pointing out, how can Kanu defend it? How can Kanu argue against them? Because right about now, he didn't enter defense at the Federal High Court. And so, on what basis is he going to be able to challenge, if at all he wants to use these supposed contradictions to argue his case? If you didn't enter defense, how will you enter defense at the appeal court? Some people are already saying that perhaps the judges at the appeal court can actually review the judgment of the High Court and see whether there is some sort of defect there, to spot what was not done right by the lower court. It's going to be quite a bit tricky, but we'll see how all of these things are handled. But that's it on the front page today. I mean, the nation has had an interesting week, I must say. We didn't even talk about the US Congress committee trying to investigate the alleged genocide, Christian genocide in the country. It has been a week, but of course we just picked out the ones still continuing with their updates on the national dailies today, and hoping that we have been able to try as much as possible make sense of them. And so that's it on the front page. We will see you next time. Don't forget to drop your comments. Let's know what you think about some of these text headlines. And don't forget to also follow me on social media. Just check out linktree.ee/Njideka Maduka so that you can have access to all my social media platforms. I will see you on the next one. Hopefully, I will be here. We'll see when we'll see you, right? Have a fantastic weekend. Do enjoy every bit of it.